Welcome to Gotham Sound TV. Joe, are you with us?
I am with you.
All right. Um, so we are coming to you in a very different way than we usually broadcast from. I'm in the shop at the studio. Joe is running things. He is, many feet away from me. He's in a different part of the office completely. And we're here talking to Adam Sanchez. Adam, hi. Hey,
Hi.
Adam. So, Adam, I was just saying we're going to talk about the Cantar, and the reason is a few months ago, in the before times, you got into a car accident, and nobody was hurt, but you were on your way to set, and you called me to fill in. If I could just fill in for you until you're able to get your car towed, and
Mhm.
you work with the Cantar and Zaxcom. And I had to be honest. I was like, I don't feel comfortable jumping into your setup. And so that sort of planted a seed. Like I wanted to know more. I wanted to be. I regretted, that I couldn't do it. Um, and so I thought maybe we can. You could talk me through a Cantar or the way you
Okay.
use it, and we can also talk a little bit about life and the craziness that's going on.
Sure.
And I think we have to talk about it right away because one of the things is you don't actually have your Cantar in front of you, and I wondered if you could tell us about that.
Yeah. So our shutdown, the shutdown of the production that I was on, the flight attendant, kind of happened in a sort of ad hoc fashion. We were going to shoot on a Thursday, and they said Friday, maybe not. We lost a location while they rescrambled. Then Friday was a day off, and then they said, well, we're going to have to shut down completely because of this. So my equipment is on a truck in Queens. And because of liability issues, I'm not allowed to kind of access my stuff. So for the time being, it's insured and it's in a bonded lot somewhere. But sadly, it's not in front of me, which makes this sort of an interesting sort of thing. I'm going to be flying a little bit blind.
Uh, that's such a crazy story, and I wonder if other people are in that same situation where they just don't have their stuff
Yeah.
because of
Yeah. No,
circumstance.
I've spoken to a couple mixers just by text, and just to see if this was normal, and and this is just a thing that happened for some people.
Yeah, it's a crazy kind of normal, I guess.
Yeah.
So it also, though, I mean, it is, to be fair, like if I did show up and you did have to talk me through your setup, this would be kind of, similar, like where you wouldn't have a Cantar in front of you. The only thing different is I just pulled this out of a rental case earlier this morning. And so really we'd be really starting from scratch in a way. So, yeah, I mean, I think, without further ado, let's dive in.
Sure.
Before we went live, you said something so concise about the kind of design philosophy of the Cantar that it blew me away. I wonder if you don't mind starting there and repeating that.
I'll do my best. I think I I think I nailed it the first time. Basically, I think when I'm talking someone through the machine, which has been a couple of times now, and I'm getting better at it every time, there are two kind of big stumbling blocks towards understanding the machine, and they're sort of like really fundamental design features of the machine that run counter to the way that we've been doing things for a while. And if you forget it, sometimes you can kind of get lost trying to look for something that doesn't exist or look for something in the wrong place. And the first thing is that traditionally we've kind of used an analog board in front of a bit bucket, some sort of digital machine, and we run stuff in there. And that's sort of the way that the cart and the horse are kind of oriented. Um, and what the designers did was they kind of designed a machine to be used with a control surface. So they flipped that and put the cart and the horse. The cart is now behind the horse in a different sort of way. The recorder itself has priority over the mixer. So the inputs go directly into the machine, directly into a recorder, and then the recorder has cross points for a mix matrix after the fact. And because it has sort of a wealth of tracks, they sort of take priority,
That is
The
that
other
is so
thing
that is
that
sorry
kind
to
of informs the way that you look at the machine is the idea that it's monowave centric.
mhm.
And although we use broadcast polywaves, and that's what we're going to work in terms of getting stuff in and out of the machine today, they sort of fundamentally adhered to this idea that the mono wave file should be the master source. And what it does is it's set up in such a way that alleviates any sort of complications whereby you would end up with multiple folders or copies with different stuff in different places. Are you calling? Sorry.
No, that's
I thought you guys were calling me because I feel like I'm not here.
Can you hear me? Oh,
Hello?
I'm gonna chat with you. You might have to
Okay.
reboot your browser. Anyways, I will. While Adam, you get that sorted, I will say that is a really profound way of looking at the Cantar. This idea that you are putting the recorder first and then the mixer afterwards. So, I think once you sort of realize that, a lot of things click into place in terms of where you plug stuff in and how it shows up and what becomes the trim and the fader and so on. So let's see if we have Adam back. And I guess we do not.
Not quite yet. Stand by.
All right. Anyway, so the rig we have here is going to be the Cantar and the Cantar M, which most closely mimics what Adam. Hey, how are you?
Hey,
you're back.
I guess I broke.
All right.
I guess I broke it from talking too much.
No, you were. It was good. It was all good. And I was just saying, with the rig we have here, most mimics what you have, which is the Cantar and the Cantar M.
Right.
So I have a microphone that I plugged into input one. Obviously, you would be dealing with many more microphones and sources. And I guess we'll start with the Cantar off. So there we go. And then we'll just, we'll start as if I showed up to your cart and I say, okay, Adam, talk me through this thing.
Okay. All right. So I guess the first things first, let's turn the machine on. Between pots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So behind pot 7, between 6 and 7, there should be a button directly behind there. There you go.
Got it. Yep. And there it's coming on now. Perfect. And it boots up.
Yep.
Now, we did power this on before, and it had asked about, is this a new day? Which is a normal thing that asks. It won't ask it now because it's the second time it's been turned on today.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me about what Cantar does with days. Why is it so obsessed with new days?
So yeah, that was the next thing I was going to kind of get into before. The top level folder is always a project, and the mid level folder is always the date. The roll number only operates as a sort of suffix to that date, and the idea is that you're never going to have kind of the same folder twice. If you rename a folder Sound Roll 57, you recorded Sound Roll 57 yesterday and you record Sound Roll 57 today, you're going to end up with two distinctly different folders, which is really helpful in terms of archivability. There's been a fact where I've gotten a call from Post, where's this, or we're looking for that. And oftentimes it's a lot easier to say, well, let's look at the slate. What's the date on the slate? And then say, okay, well, good. Let's go to this folder from this date and let's work at it from there. And oftentimes they can just auto-conform directly from there just by looking for the file and the time code.
Got it. Interesting. All right. Well, here we are at the home screen, and this knob here That's called the crown, and that's significant, right, Adam?
Yeah, that's basically the way that you operate it. It's how you get in and out of menus. So the crown has a series of menus depending on where the indicator. That if you can you rotate the machine towards the camera just a little bit, just clock it. It would be clockwise, just a fraction. There you go. Yeah, that's good. So people can see that the silver tab there is going to indicate where on the crown you are. And I think for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to refer to it as 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, as if it were a watch face. It's just a little bit easier. And as you get used to the machine, it kind of becomes muscle memory where everything is. So I'm gonna be sort of referring back to it that way.
Perfect.
So if you look at that main screen, in the position you're at now at 9 o'clock, the machine's only drawing like 300 milliamps. It's basically just enough to keep the system running, and it's not passing audio, and it's holding on to time code if you were jammed. And in this position, it's the default position. If I'm doing a quick company move, I leave the machine there. I do not turn the machine off. I just leave it there, and then the clock runs. So if you look there, it kind of gives you the basics of kind of what's going on with the machine. You can see that the system date and system time's there, the battery condition. If you were to press F1, I believe, it'll show you the battery status of the internal batteries. And it uses those smart batteries, which will tell you a little bit. It'll give you a little bit of metrics on how they're doing.
When Adam says F1 or F2, those refer to these things here, and they're kind of peppered around the machine. But I'll hit F1 for us, and yeah. So I was lazy. I only put one battery in, and I only put it in slot number 2. But yeah, it definitely gives us the status of it.
Yeah, and if it's interesting that it doesn't have the metrics for it as a non-Aaton battery, but c'est la vie.
Yeah.
So if you're lost, you can press escape so you can get back. If you're lost in any given menu, there's 2 things you can do. The first thing is to look in the bottom of the screen. The blue indicator will kind of show you what sort of things are available to you within that menu at any given point in time. The other thing is, and I don't know if it works in this position, but in other positions, if you press the big blue button, which is a shift key, there's 2 of them. There's one to the left of the number 1 pot, and there's one on the underside behind the crown. If you were to press that 3 times quickly, it'll give you a help menu, and I don't believe it does so in this particular window, but you can try it.
Oh, it says help, up or down, media free space information, power. Cantar. Yeah, so yeah, that's great. All right.
So yeah, wherever you are, it'll give you a little help. And now you can see that the project is defaulted to Aaton Cantar, so we don't have it set up for a project. If you were to go onto my machine on any given day, the project would already be loaded up, whatever that previous project was. In this case, it's the flight that was on the flight attendant. And the days there, obviously, and then it shows you the settings for the machine, 48K 24-bit. Then below that, it's giving you the status of its drives. So you have a solid-state drive that looks pretty empty. It's a 250 gigabyte drive, and you have nothing in the SD1, SD2 slots, or USB.
Yeah, I do, but we'll get to why they're not showing up later in the presentation. If we
you put some fresh ones in and they need to be formatted. Okay, well, we're gonna get to that next.
Yep.
So at the beginning of the day, if my machine were set to 23.97, or whatever the frame rate we desire for the given project, then at this point I would jam either to the internal clock or set it to 0, depending on what post is requested to make sense for the show. If you wanted to jam the machine direct, as is, you would hold down the shift button and press F3, which is the 3rd button to your right on the face of the plate.
Got it. Yep. Do you want to jam system time? And so if I say okay, it'll jam to the internal clock, or will it jam to external time?
Correct.
Nope.
It'll jam to the internal clock.
Got it. That's cool.
Yeah. And so now you're jammed. For the sake of this, we could say that we're shooting at 24 frames per second and move on, right?
I don't. If you don't mind, can we change? Are you okay to change the project name and the time code rate
Sure.
just for drill? All right.
Right.
So I presume.
Okay. Well.
I'd have to turn the crown. I presume.
Yes, you turn the crown to 3 o'clock for time code.
Okay, so I'm going to go all the way to 3 o'clock, which is there. And so this is called the technical settings. And all right. And now I can kind of move this internal part of the crown around, and I can get all kinds of different options. So let's see if I wanted to go to change.
Have I done it? It should be. I may be incorrect here. I may have to be 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
I'm sorry.
Let's try 4 o'clock. Oh, yep, you're right.
Yeah.
And that is audio and time code parameters. That makes more sense.
Yes. Okay.
So all right.
So the first thing in the menu is the sample rate's 40K, 24-bit, and then there's your Litzy rate. Okay, cool. So you switch that to the desired frames per second.
I say okay, and then now this has always been a source of confusion. I have A, B, and C. Is there just a rule of thumb, like especially for North America?
If you go and press escape for a second, there's a descriptor there that kind of puts it out through there.
By default,
so the 2329, yeah, exactly.
Okay, good, perfect. All right.
Yeah, the A and B are there to help deal with different HD camera speeds.
Got it. Okay, and it says timecode generator switch to timecode drift audio timecode resetted.
Okay. Press escape to close. And I think you can rejam the clock from here by pressing Shift and F3 again.
All right. Shift F3. Whoops. No, it's not.
Okay, that's fine. You would just have to go back to the to another position. Set the crown to any one of the positions between stop and pre-record, and then you would rejam from there.
Done. So changing frame rate like that necessitates a rejam.
Right.
Good. Okay.
Okay. So let's do the first things first, which is to set up the project. So if you take the crown, you put it to the 2 o'clock position. That should give you your session information, and basically from here on out, you're gonna have to go the other way around. Yeah. The machine's gonna kind of walk you through the process from setting up a session to record, and as you work your way around the dial, we can kind of do that. I put the time code first in my brain because I'm used to just wanting to jam the slates almost immediately, so I get it out of the way. But here we go. If you go to the project, it's at Aaton Cantar, and you highlight it, press OK. You can change the name to any given project you wish. And so if you wish to change this to a different project name, we could do that. And once that's done, it's created a whole new top-level folder with a whole new folder hierarchy. If you switch,
a way to add a project name? Sorry, is there a way to, like, if I wanted to change it from Aaton Cantar to
you would go to you would create a new project.
Which is right there. It says it right there. Create new.
Yes, that's 2.
Right. Yeah. There we go. Okay, and I can. We have a USB keyboard that works, and so I'm just gonna say Adam's session. Okay, there we go. Terrific. And so now I've created a new project. And what else do I need to do in this screen?
the next thing you do is let's figure out that let's assume that we're going to go to sound roll 1. So if you highlight day suffix and press OK, which it's already.
I'm there.
Okay,
And
that
it says
that shows you your day folder, right? And your suffix label. This screen is will show up every time you turn on the machine, and it will prompt you to create a new day folder with a new suffix. And so every day when I turn on the machine, the first thing I do is make sure that I'm in the right folder, and it's pretty important for obvious reasons. But the not so obvious reason is that changing it, as you will see, is not as simple as just moving stuff around. One of the things about the way this machine was designed was that everything kind of stays put in the right place in the right time, and you can archive stuff. You pull any given folder out, it'll have the same stuff in the same order every time. What that also means is there's a certain degree of inflexibility about moving stuff around. So there's sort of an impetus to get this part correct. There's a fix, and I'll show you the fix later for getting the folder incorrect. But I think it's important to keep that in mind, that it is sort of important. And if you look back at the screen that's there, one of the tricky things about this is that it will ask you if it wants to use the suffix or not, and that's because the suffix as a roll number was something that Aaton adopted for American end users. It was a way of reflecting a sound roll number for episodic use. So as you can see, it says suffix label and then parentheses not used. You would press F3 to toggle that and make sure that you're using it, and not just creating if you did not use it, you would create just a daily mid-level folder. So now your mid-level folder has the date and then a sound roll number on it. And you can edit that by pressing, what's that, F?
Oh, suffix F5. Yeah, it's
F5 edit, yeah.
Yeah, so I can edit that. And so now we can make it any roll number.
Any roll number.
Okay, got it. That's really handy. And so would that also count for like if they had to do a break at lunch and you had to increment the roll number, not the date? Okay, got it.
Correct. Yeah, you would go here to increment the roll number and not the date. So if you press OK to accept that, and now we've kind of set the machine up with a project and a mid-level folder, we can talk about where the information is going. Now, the machine wants to record to mono wave files in one place and then refer to that as like the sort of master list of files, and then everything else is supposed to kind of follow that in terms of the polywave world. So the priority is given to mono. Now, some end users like to put all their mono files someplace like an SD card, and then keep with polywaves on the hard drive. I prefer to do it the other way around, and what I do is I put mono wave files on the hard drive, so that's the master list. And then my SD1 slot is usually my daily card that I hand in and out, and I swap out daily. And my SD2, I usually put a high capacity card and treat that as a small hard drive for archiving. So I'll shuttle that in and out. After 4 months of work, I'll pop everything from there onto a hard drive so that I have polywave somewhere else. And it's sort of, I keep it on array at home. So if that's what we're going to do, which is what I would like to do, we would have to then format the two cards. Okay. Which if you look on the screen, it'll prompt you.
Yeah, it's a very informative screen. F4 format SD1. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Format SD card in slot 1. All data will be erased. Press Shift and F3 to start it. So Shift and F3, and off it goes. Fantastic. That is very quick. It's done. And so now I formatted it. It still says disabled though. Is that right?
Yeah, it's disabled because you haven't told it to do anything yet. And so if you highlight that, press OK.
Mm-hmm.
It'll
Now I
give
see.
you an option there
Yep.
to enable
so-
enable the driver.
Got it. Okay. Whoops. So I need to say okay.
Press the right button.
There we go.
Press the
I
right
can
button.
say-
There.
Yep. And it says mode, live record, or idle or disabled. So if I go to live record, now I'd have to tell it mono, poly, or mix down, and presumably any combination of those.
Correct.
So,
in this particular case, we're going to do poly.
Mm-hmm. And so polyphonic on, and you would do the mix down as well, yes?
The mix down is unnecessary. Just the poly. The mix down file is created when you're doing mono files. If you're using monophonic files, it will then give each track its own file, and then it will, because the recorder is prior to the mixer, each input track gets its own file monophonically, and then there'll be another monophonic file of your mix track.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
So in this particular case, now this is helpful because if you're doing something insofar as, like, let's say you were trying to spit out a mix down only in MP3 format or some other format, you could do so on another piece of media.
Got it.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm going to say okay.
Right.
And now I have a check mark. And so now we'll format SD2 and go ahead and do that. So format is F5. And format SD2, press Shift and F3 to do it. And off it goes. It's really quick.
Yeah.
It's nice. All right. Good. And it's done. And escape to close. And now repeat the process for telling it what to do. In terms of SD2, which you had said you would do mono on SD2 in theory.
No, I would do poly. I would do poly. Okay.
Poly on SD2 and on and done. Okay. Good.
Okay. Now
so
here,
there it is.
This is something that worth considering. I jumped to, let's put this in live record mode, which means that as it is recording, it is writing to those cards. That's okay. When you start getting into high track counts with this machine, it's really advisable to idle copy to at least one, if not both, of the peripheral drives. And the reason is that
I was going to say, what's the difference between idle copy and live record?
So in live record, the machine is writing the files as it records them directly onto each card. And in the idle copy mode, you would have to then kind of put it in a standby or in test mode in between takes or when you have a turnaround or whatever, and it would then write to those peripheral drives when it has some free time, when it has some processing power to spare. And then if you think about it, if you're recording, let's say 10 tracks to a hard drive internally, and then you're recording 10, you'd also be recording another 10 tracks to SD1 and another 10 tracks to SD2. So you're in reality recording 30 tracks. And that's a lot of processing power. So if you start getting into the 24 times 3 world, the machine may not operate as smoothly as you'd like to. And what'll happen and what you'll experience is that in those instances where someone says, well, roll sound, you roll, hold the roll, no, you cut, then roll sound, and you roll, then hold the roll, and you cut. Now you've created 3 different files with 24 tracks each, multiplied to 3 different drive machine to write, and it will hang up. It won't crash, it won't die. It just takes time to write all that stuff, and it won't let you do anything until it's done writing. It's a way of kind of safeguarding the information, but it also means that, it requires active operation. If for most days on most episodic television where you're running like 10 tracks or less, it's no big deal. But then if you're getting into a day with heavy track counts, idle copy is really the way to go.
Understood. So I'm going to go and change that now. And that was very helpful to know the difference. It's almost like simultaneous writing versus bucket brigade style, I guess, as
Right.
what I would consider idle. And when you switch it to idle, is there that kind of media protection? So, like, if you get a bum SD card,
there's media protection running all the time. And so when you start recording, you're going to see these card icons that are just like the ones in front of you, where there'll be a card, and if it's blue and has a check mark, it's happy, and you'll then see the read-write speed in a small number indicated, like a value between 0 and 100, 100 being bad, and like 10 to 20 is like I'm burbling along happily. And you'll see it happen pretty fast. I'm actually a little bit disquieted by the fact that there seems to be a red check mark next to your solid state drive. I don't know if that's
red?
Yeah. Red means that there's something going on, that it didn't mount correctly. I would be loath to format it. Yeah, we format it.
No. Yeah, format it. Let's format it. Okay.
Since it's been sitting in a box and it's new, and
let's format it. Okay. So now to format the internal drive, you have to do something different. Shift F3, and then enter Cantar number before starting process. So Shift and F3.
Correct. The serial number of your Cantar is located right where your forefinger used to be, behind the faceplate of the machine. If you flip the lid up, if you flip the display up, you'll see the number.
173. Fascinating. This is really elaborate.
Correct. And then,
I like it.
And then you have to put the serial number of the machine in before you format it.
Yeah, I like it. All right. I mean, it would.
Oh yeah.
You have to sober, pretty much. Yeah, pretty sober to do this. So that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. There's no mistaking when you've done it.
No. All right. So it's not red anymore. So that's probably good.
Okay. Very good. So in this particular case, if my interest was to do a PDF sound report, this would be the place to also arrange for that. And I feel like that's a lot of time for this broadcast. But if you want to go into it, we can kind of open it now.
I mean, so I see PDF is on. I think that's just because I want to keep us to an hour. And we can always, if you're willing, you can always jump in on more details, especially as people see the video and ask more questions. We can do a separate video, but let's move forward. So, but that's where PDF report is. Good. Okay, so
we're jammed. Yeah, we're jammed. We've got everything kind of cooking right now. The next thing I think would be to sort of talk a little bit about how you want your inputs to go to what tracks and how you want your mix down to work. Would that be a good thing to work for me? You start spinning the dial. Yeah, let's go to 5 o'clock.
Okay, I can go to 5 o'clock. That's 4, and that's 5. Oh yeah. Okay, good. So what am I looking at?
So right now you're looking at your input to track routing, and like I said before, the mixing element of this is very much secondary priority to the input to track. And so if you look at the way it's kind of set up now, it's defaulted to a position where you have your ISOs on 1 through 8 and your mixed tracks on 9 and 10.
And how do I know
that's kind of
M1? So I have 1 to 24 at the top there, and those are my tracks. And then M1 refers to mic 1 and so on. And then I see something that says XL and XR. What does X mean?
Okay, so those are your mix buses, and so what you're looking at is the way it's currently configured. Track 1 has mic 1, and that is bused to the left mix bus, and then track 2 has mic 2, and that's to your right mix bus, and so on and so forth, cascading down. Mic input 3 is going to track 3, and mic input 4 is going to track 4, 5 to 5, 6 to 6, 7 to 7, 8 to 8, and everything from 2 to 8 is going to the right.
Right. So this might have been set up for somebody who was doing boom to the left track and wireless to all the rest of it to the right track. Let's say they were wireless.
Right. Right.
Okay.
The way that most of us like to do it for film and television here is we put the mix track on 1 and the ISOs on 2 through 8. If you want to save this configuration, if you like this, you want to use it later, that's fine. Let's take the left crown and we'll just pick another configuration. Like this will remember snapshots of multiple configurations. So there's no use in deleting this one or changing this one.
So if I move this around,
let's see what else you got there.
The left crown is, let's see, there it is. The left crown is there, and I can kind of rotate this. So there's configuration 2. Configuration 2 is completely empty. And so this is how I set up my configuration, so I can have a whole bunch of different options with different tracks and stuff. And how many configurations, what's my maximum?
I don't know what your maximum is. It's pretty big. I haven't exhausted mine.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, I'm at 20, and I'll just stop there. So all right, I'm going to go back to 2. But yeah, so a lot. That's great. Okay, good. All right. So
it's fantastic because if you,
there we go.
If you're the kind of person who does want to use an analog mixer in front of this machine and then go portable, you could have one configuration for an analog machine, an analog mixer with a mix bus going in 1 through 8, and then you could have a different configuration for going onto a bag. So it would just be, you'd flip that, you'd be in bag mode.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. So assuming we're going to use it with the Cantar M now, we have this blank configuration. I only have one mic plugged in, but where do I start? And assuming that we're doing typical episodic of mix track on track 1.
Sure. Let's just say that we're going to use the mix track, the left side of the mix track as our mono mix, and let's just keep the right one in our pocket as an auxiliary bus, or we're just not going to use it. So if you look at track 1 and you highlight the first box there and press OK, it's going to give you a bunch of options there.
Oh, right? I see. I see. And left is my first option. Yeah.
Correct. So
go ahead.
That will be your mix left.
Perfect. And so now I use the inner crown to get over to track 2. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. One of the things about this machine is you can use the inner crowns and the outer crowns to spin stuff around if that's how you feel comfortable. And sometimes in a bag, it's nice to do so. I grew up on Nintendo controllers, so I use the up, down, left, and right buttons to sort of
yeah. Have you tried any of the cheat codes? See if there's an Easter egg.
Yes.
All right.
I'm sworn to secrecy.
We'll leave it at that and let everybody Google that. All right. Track 2.
Okay. So track 2, we would want to be mic input 1. Presumably, I guess it looks like you're plugged into mic input 1. So I would highlight the top, go up there. Yeah, there you go. So if you think about the one of the things about this is that to save space on the screen, what they haven't informed you is that if you could imagine on the left, on the y-axis of this grid, on the left, it would sort of correspond to numbered 1 through I think it's 1 through 8, top to bottom. So
yes,
if you were to highlight this would give you access to mic input 1. If you were to highlight the box below it, it would give you access to mic input 2, and then 3 and 4 and so forth as you move down.
Now, one thing I I see is that these are not radio buttons. Like I could get mic 1 and mic 2 onto track 2. Is that correct?
That's correct. You could put anything you want on any track.
And it just mixes them together?
Yes, it just mashes them together on that track. And the thing is that if you, once again, because the recorder is prior to the mixer, and you have essentially like kind of disposable tracks, you can use a given track and use it as a sort of bus by proxy. It will stream information. It'll stream audio to inputs and outputs, and you could even disarm that track and never record it. Which
then you can
becomes a really
dump the output somewhere if you like. Let's say I wanted to feed somebody. Got it. Now, Aaton has their firmware updates. I think one of them specifically deals with aux buses. Was this a kind of answer to that? Okay, that's
I think what it is that it's exactly that. I think that a lot of the end users didn't completely embrace this idea that the recorder sits in front of the mixing engine, and they wanted more cross points in the mixing engine. So the newest firmware does include aux buses, which I haven't played with yet because I've been in the middle of a show. It just came out.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. Just to take a quick break from this, one of the things, Adam, that I really am liking about this is it's very real. I mean, this is real world. Some of this stuff, like I know from just sort of using the machine, but having you explain this to me from the beginning to the end, and me being your eyes and hands, or at least your hands, has been so helpful for me. Just in terms of really new understanding of the machine. And I hope for anybody watching, if we have anybody watching at all, if nothing else, I hope it's good for them as well. But it's great for me. All right, now one thing
I'm going to jump in here just from the internet. They're asking, can you label the configs?
Yes. Can you label the configs? I do see there's a thing that says name. I wonder, let's see, can I get up there? Oh, I bet if I read,
I've been kicked off.
Okay. Oh, no.
Yeah.
And the internet also saying if you hit shift and then the plus OK, you can name the config.
Yes. And there it is. So new config now becomes Adam config.
So that's thanks to Santiago Paul and Jim Keeney. Both are chiming in there.
Yeah. Good. And definitely feel free to jump in and interject questions and comments, Joe.
Cool. Jim did also ask, are these selectable as pre and post faders in the routing matrix?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So by default, M1 came up purple. Does that mean does purple mean pre-fade? If
you can do pre-fade, pre-gain, or post-fade. If you highlight it there.
Okay, so I can. Look at that.
Post-fade 1.
Yeah, post-fade 1. Okay, so that would be post-fade. But right now it's set to pre-fade. And is
Correct.
Pre-fade in this machine, in this firmware, is pre-fade that's pre-EQ as well, or is that post-EQ?
Post-EQ.
Okay, got it. Good.
Yeah, the machine is set up by default post-EQ.
Got it. All right. And here, if I go,
I'm sure that like right now the internet is erupting.
I don't know.
One of the nice things about this is, if you like, let's say I use my machine with AES inputs, and I basically have I use up all my AES inputs. Mm-hmm. The basis about going pre-gain or post-gain. So you could kind of keep everything at nominal, and you could start driving stuff, overdriving or stuff to buses if as necessary, which is sometimes helpful. It's actually a lot helpful it seems that nowadays we have a lot of requests for hotter tracks from editorial. They want a really hot mix track.
Yes.
And of course, everyone else in the chain, in the workflow, doesn't want that, or they'd rather not have something that's recorded that hot. So it's really nice to have that flexibility, because you got to make the client happy,
Now, if I say, how do I send stuff to the mix bus? So I've said track 2 is mic 1. How do I get it to like my left mix bus?
Right. So F4, F5, and F6 will kind of give you your left, center, right pan. Or F5. Try F5. That's at the bottom of the screen there. Sorry.
There it is. Yeah. No, that's totally fine. So
yeah, there
I
you
can
go.
just send it to left. Yeah, perfect. That's really
so
cool.
There you go. Now
okay.
So now it's to your left mix bus. And if we had anything else going anywhere else, that would be a thing to do. At this point, we only have one input, right?
Well, one thing I do want to mention, because it kind of threw me, I said, when I first saw this, I said, wait a second, there's a grid that, as we said, has 8 rows. And I just assumed that might limit me to the first 8 inputs of anything. But if I wanted to get Dante track 16 on track 3, Dante input 16 on track 3, I can do that from any of these 8 grids. I'm not limited. It's not like I have to find some upper grid. Yeah. Just I don't have Dante enabled, but just so people know, just because you have 8 rows doesn't mean you can't go past 8 on any of your inputs.
Correct. Yeah. So I think that in this menu, in this window, they'll allow you to start configuring knobs and sliders. Since we're talking about input to tracks, and we've already want the mix bus to be XL, we could kind of start talking about the knobs and the sliders. They're actuators. Like they're sometimes people are like, well, which is the trim pot and which is the fader? And in this particular case, it could be whatever you want it to be. In my configuration on my cart, I have a Cantar M connected to the Cantar, and so my faders on my Cantar M correspond to input to tracks, like a traditional board mixer, and I use the sliders on the top face of my machine as output trims.
Interesting. Output trims to adjust output levels. Yeah, for your physical outputs. Got it.
Correct. And so that frees up the knobs to actually act as trim pots, which I think most people who look at this machine would kind of say, well, I want the knobs to be trim pots. So I guess first things first, let's make the knob a trim pot. If you hold down the shift button and then the little button next to the number 1 trim pot, hopefully in this screen, it will let you do that routing.
No, not in this screen, but if I get out of this screen, let's see.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to, nope.
All right. Yeah, go into test mode.
All right, I am in, I'm in test, let's pre-record. Yeah, I'm in test now, and so shift. You
got to hold them down for a second. So, and any one of those buttons next to the.
There we go. I probably wasn't holding it down long enough. There we go. Okay, so assignment pot 1. Yeah.
So there you go. So this is where you.
Sorry, go ahead.
You got it. No, you got it.
Oh yeah, no, that's it. Change to mic 1. That's literally because it says P1, M1. That's it. I'm done. If I wanted to change that to mic 2, I can do it, but for now, let's leave it to mic number 1. It's already driven by the Cantar M number 1. Okay, good. So I'm going to say okay, and that's great. And so, what would be the next assignment that we would do?
Actually, I might be able to jump in here. There's a question from the internet. Santiago Paul says, will you talk about the digital inputs? Is it possible to assign a digital input to the rotary faders? This might be a good time to throw that in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you just hold the shift and that button again to get back into that menu, if you just take a look at the rotary, the rotary faders there. So if you just scroll through that, you can see everything. You can make this an input, an output, or a fader just by scroll the jog wheel or use the up and down buttons here.
Got it. Oh yeah, look at that. AES1. Boom, done. There's AES. Is that reading on the screen? Yeah, I think it is. All right, so that's AES1 through 8, and then you get into AES42. And now I can also have them be tracks, and there are my outputs, my line out. And now I'm all the way back to mic number 1. That's great.
Right. Keep in mind that if you assign this as a track, that means that what you're doing is you're assigning it as a fader to a mix bus.
Yeah. So presumably all of the sources going to it, and then if I have it at anything but unity, I'm affecting the overall level, either lowering the whole track or raising the whole track.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, good. Very cool. And so, how do I tell it to be to have its mix bus be contributed by the fader associated with it, or is that the next?
Sure. Thing? Okay. Yeah, the next thing I think is to find a fader that you want to be assigned to that. You have the Cantar M2 connected, right?
Correct. And so I'm just going to pan the little webcam over, and so now, yeah, I am at fader number 1 there on the Cantar M.
Cool. Okay, so the Cantar M is a pretty deceptively simple little device. If you look at those 2 little buttons that are directly facing you, the little semicircles in the front of the device, that's a shift button right there. It's a shift button just like the blue button on the top of the machine. So if you hold any one of those down and then press one of the pre-fade, the top of the fader buttons, that should give you a screen that shows you the assignment of the Cantar M sliders.
Yes. So now I'm going to pan the little webcam over to the Cantar so we can see that screen. And there we go. Okay. Yeah, I see assignment Cantar M2 slider number 1.
Great. So if you change slider number 1 to track 1, then
okay. Got it. Track number 1. Okay. And so it's warning me that something else was assigned there, but this will override that assignment. Yeah.
Oh, this is actually great. What it's telling you is that you had made the mix bus slider for mic input 1 the first slider on the Cantar M, but that previously you had it assigned to the top of the machine. It's good news. And what it's reminding you is that if you were to unplug the Cantar M2 right now, it would immediately assign that fader back to the top of the machine.
Got it.
So if you have what I do is my first 4 or 6 faders I have double assigned to the top of the machine and to my Cantar M, which means that if I have a failure on the Cantar M2, I can immediately mix off the top of the machine.
Aha. Oh, that's great. Okay. Understood. Okay, so I'm going to make that track 1. Now, by track 1, is that the mix track, or do I want to make this track 2 to control?
You're absolutely correct. It should be track 2. I'm very sorry. Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It should be track 2.
All right, and now track 2, and that's let's check this out. Okay, apply, and I'm just going to get out of here. So in theory, I'm just going to grab this mic and I'm going to talk into it. I'm going to turn up the gain. Yeah, there we go. And so that's the gain. That's the mic 1 coming in on track 2. And as I move the fader on the Cantar M, now I am mixing yeah, I'm sending the mix to track number 1. Cool. And the rest of the inputs would flow.
Correct. Worth noting is if you want to get really deep into the machine, you can adjust the ballistics on the meter, which is really helpful. And the other thing that you can adjust is the amount of gain added on the fader, the track to bus fader. So you can run your faders like 13 decibels hotter than your 13 decibels hotter than your input. So you could effectively create a 13 decibel pad on the ISO track. Instead of padding the ISO, you run the mix hotter.
Yeah, that's really helpful to know because I think, Joe, if you don't mind switching to the webcam, so you see how everything is at unity, and I'm going to pan the webcam over to the Cantar M. I'm full up to get unity. And,
Correct.
For better or worse, on analog control surfaces, I'm used to having, like a quarter more of fader if I need to get higher for some reason.
And you can do that.
Yeah. I can make that change, you're saying.
That's correct, in the technical settings.
That's great. I think, look, we are at an hour. And
I'm sorry, man.
No. Adam, this is, first of all, this is really hard to do. And, the circumstances are hard. And I'm incredibly grateful for what you've done just, for this much. I also think it's worth noting, it's hard to put yourself out there like this, especially a machine as dense as this. And, I think it's important to say we're not pretending that this is like some deep dive and you're a guru. This came out literally out of like, I wanted to be able to help you more. And some of this stuff I know, most of it I don't. And it's been super helpful for me. I hope it's been helpful for other people. I'm going to just go in and we didn't do scene name. How do I do scene name?
Okay. So if you look at the device on the front crown, there's at the 11 o'clock position, there's a pre-record setting.
Got it.
Now, if you go to 11 o'clock, right now, this is the moment at which the pre-record buffer is engaged. Before now, you were not recording anything. So the hard drive is now recording on this pre-record buffer, which is adjustable from like, I think 5 seconds to 30 seconds, and 30 seconds is huge. It taxes the machine. I do it periodically, especially when you start doing 11, 12, 13, 14-hour days.
Yeah.
So in this position, you're now recording to the buffer, and this is where you can kind of really start getting into the nuts and bolts of the metadata. So if you press F6.
F6.
I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. There it is. Nice purple screen. Scene number, take number, notes, track names. Yeah, this is everything you'd want. I did sort of grab a crummy USB keyboard I had lying around, and it seems to work just fine to be able to change everything.
And this is something I'd like to do actually. Is instead of putting metadata in here, I'd like you to press Escape. And I'm going to try and kill two birds with one stone for you.
Great.
Let's take this and just go into record, and then come out of record, and then go into record again.
Okay, and now stop. And now I'm going into record again. And now back to pre-record.
Okay. Right. So right now you've created one file with incorrect metadata, and you're in the middle of recording a file with incorrect metadata. Oh, you just took it out of put it back into pre-record. That's fine. Yeah, so
yeah, I can put it back into record if you like.
Fine. Well, I just want to show the users that you can adjust all the metadata while in record.
Aha. Okay, I'm going to record now. So yeah, and so now to change metadata, what do I press?
Okay.
And there's that purple screen again.
So right now you can do everything.
So I'm going to say, oh my God, that was scene 101, not 100. And yeah, and so now it's take one, but really, and I've been down this road before, this is really take three. And so that way I make that take three. And now is there an easy way to go back to the other takes that I forgot to change the scene number on?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to the audio file browser, which is 7 o'clock on the dial, so let's say you right.
And now we're in 7. I do know. Wait a second. I do know my clock. I swear, 7 o'clock. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's one take 4. Yep.
So you can open each individual one. As you can see on the left-hand side where it says file ID, this is something worth noting about the Aaton, is that it creates a unique file name for each file that's created. So there'll be a prefix at each file. It's an incremental, it's non-duplicatable, no two machines create the same number twice. And the idea is that you can never have two files with the same name. And so you could name everything all day accidentally 101 take 1, and it doesn't matter. The machine won't give you any warnings. You simply have time to fix it, and you can see that sequentially each file has a different number. And so by judging from the sequential number, it's really easy to go back and fix botched metadata.
I see that. That's really great. Yeah, it really is great. So I mean, I'm able to do that pretty quickly. And I remember Aaton really eating a lot of crow over the whole unique file ID, but it, having help customers recover data, it really makes a lot more sense than to try and make this file name the scene name.
Right, which goes back to that second thing I kind of brought up at the beginning, is that it seems really rigid, it seems really limiting, but the limitations are actually a really great thing insofar as it helps keep you on a very straight track in terms of data management.
Absolutely.
Worth noting in that screen is that if you want to batch edit, let's say you've got a bunch of files, you want to batch edit the information, you can highlight all the files, and it'll change all the any one of the fields for all the files simultaneously.
So
and when you do that,
how do I highlight a bunch?
Hold down the shift button and then just scroll up and down.
Oh yeah, look at that. So now if I hit F4, and I just want to, it wasn't scene 101, it was scene 101 Apple. I say, okay, I'm going to edit that, and now it's 101 Apple. And I mean, it is kind of ironic that how much time a sound mixer would have to spend dealing with metadata. Yeah, and there it is. Now all the scenes are correct. Incredible.
I mean, the interesting thing is the day that you were unable to cover, I walked my utility guy through this morning. That morning I gave him the crash course while I was in the car with the airbags deployed, talking on the phone. And I said to him, look, it doesn't. Oh, go ahead.
No. I said, I'm so sorry that's what you had to do. That's insane.
It's okay. At the time, I said to him, look, it's okay with this machine, and we haven't gotten into the record plus playback part, but my point to him was like, look, with the machine as is, as long as you're recording clean tracks, everything else can be fixed. And so when I came in halfway through the day, it was really easy for me to adjust the metadata and do some stuff. And if I had really felt that the mix track needed work, which it didn't, Carl did a great job, we could have gone back and used record and playback to fix the mix track.
I think that's a great thing to say. If people want us, like, we could repeat this show again, and take an even deeper dive. Joe, are there
something
any
that's
questions?
kind of missing out there is a.
Go ahead, Adam.
something that's kind of missing out there is a really comprehensive instructional video. There are videos. I'm not detracting from the ones that are out there. They're quite good, but a really like super deep dive into the record and playback function on this device would be really worthwhile.
Noted. Yeah, I mean, I noted absolutely. Joe, are there any questions?
There's one here. Can you expand a bit on what you said in regards to the pre and post gain workflow for the AES inputs?
I'm going to get back to InGrid. I wonder if the person that commented on that want to do it, like, are they looking for a specific scenario? Because that would help.
Let's find out.
But in any case, pre and post gain. So like maybe if I had to guess, maybe putting one track, the same source on one track pre-fade and that source again post-fade might be what they're after. Which, Adam, if I wanted to take mic 1 and put it to track 3 post-fade, how would I do that?
You would go to the input, the InGrid routing, which is 5 o'clock on the machine. Then you would say it would go to post fade 2. Like, so you would have to take your highlight the next cube down, because it would be post fade track 2.
Post fade track 2, got it. Oh, and that's it. So now let's go back to that screen. Okay, so I'm going to grab my dynamic mic, and wait a second, I made it mad. No, okay, there it is, post fade. Yeah, absolutely. No, that is exactly what it's supposed to do. So the fader is down, and now I only see it pre-fade on track 2, and as I bring input 1's fader up,
we're only seeing your sleeve there. Sorry.
Oh, Jesus. I'm so sorry, guys. Thank you.
It's gone plaid.
Let me see if I can. I've done it now.
It's a feature.
Right. Hang on. Shaky cam for a second. All right. So now if I can do this. Oh, man. Corona. All right. So you can see the 3 tracks on the side of the machine. You can see them all equal. If I move the fader down, now you can only see it on pre-fade track 2. So that is that's the story. Yeah, so that's how I would do that with AES tracks. That works with any input that Cantar is capable of receiving, I assume.
Yes.
Is that and Joe, did that answer our commenter's question?
Boy, I hope so. I haven't heard from Santiago Paul yet, but right. I guess we'll have to do a follow-up video. Sean Allen says yes, please do something even more in detail. We love it.
Well, hi, Sean.
Well, yeah, hi, Sean. I'm really glad that you did this, Adam. This is really this is very special to me. And is your family okay? Are you you're hunkered down?
Oh yeah.
In upstate.
Yeah, I mean it's hardly upstate. I'm just south of the Tappan Zee, but yeah, it's good. It's to be honest, I grew up, kind of watching public access shows and eating leftovers. Like it's kind of fun.
I think a lot of people in our business.
I shouldn't say that because other people are having a terrible time, and
Well, yeah, and you're doing the whole distance learning thing with your daughter. Is that right?
My son, yeah, he's school's out, so we're doing outschool.com with him, which has been really cool. And we've been doing kind of this sort of trying to get him to do sort of his independent projects and his own kind of writing stuff, which has been really good. I've found an out of work Chinese teacher who wants to teach me Chinese, so I've been taking Skype classes, and I think we're all just trying to kind of do stuff to keep our brains busy.
Yeah. I have been really trying to think about what filmmaking will be like for us in the future. It's I can tell you for the present, it's about iPhone adapters. I think we've sold more iPhone adapters this week than we have since we've opened. But yeah, in terms of going forward, it's gonna be very very different, I think. I don't know. Have you thought about that at all? Is it? I can't imagine what it's going to be like when we get back.
Before we left, I made the joke. That the day before we left, I made the joke like, well, nobody's wearing a radio mic today because I don't want to get sick. And there was this sort of like pause on set.
Well, yeah. Well, I know that there are news crews, news sound people that have come into Gotham these past few weeks, and God, it feels I should say the past week and a half. It feels like the past month, but anyways, news sound people, and yeah, they're not laving anybody in the field. It's sort of 6 foot distance. A weird switch is the field news sound people are all in the shot with their poles 6 feet extended to sort of show the safe social distance, and that's part of the frame they've been shooting apparently. It's
I like
it. It's yeah. Well, anyways, look, I think we should sign off. I don't want to sign off, but I think we should. I just want to thank you, Adam, for doing this. We'll do it again if people want. I
had a blast. Let's do it again. I really enjoyed this.
And we should thank Joe.
I've got to cut in on you just to wish you, Peter. Just to wish you, Peter, a happy birthday.
Oh,
happy birthday!
Thank you. It's a hell of a time to turn 50. My COVID mortality rate just doubled. It was half of what it was yesterday. So,
my son's birthday was only a week ago. Here's his piñata.
Nice. Oh, wait! Show it again. We were late to the cut. Sorry. Show it one more time.
Happy poopy birthday! Happy COVID birthday!
Yeah, thank you. There you go.
That's amazing.
Oh man. That is amazing. Happy birthday to your son, and thank you, and thanks Joe, and thanks Jared, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll keep your ideas coming. GothamSound.tv, and thanks. Be safe, be well.